Next, if you're turning your selective studies book to page 75 and look for D major, which is the very top line. This is an arpeggiation in D major. The first thing I recommend is going through this whole entire piece and making sure that you know all the fingerings. One thing that I want to point out right here at the beginning is the high D, which is at the end of the first measure. Whenever you're playing high D, make sure that you have half hold, 2, 3, and then you have your second finger, your middle finger, down here, covered, and then your low C key. You can also go here so you can see it, half hold, 2, 3, middle, and your C key too. Whenever you put your second finger down on your right hand, that helps bring down the pitch and also help the note to respond just a little bit better. Let's look at the key signature. There are 2 sharps, which is C sharp and F sharp. You don't have to worry about the C sharp in this case because there's not one. Now, we do have to look at the F sharp, so you can mark this into your music. Just make sure that you are playing them as you are practicing, especially at the very beginning. So again, the same method goes for whenever you're using the metronome. I encourage you to even start at a very low speed, even where it's uncomfortably slow, just so that you can make sure you get the most notes right possible. And you don't have to stay there for long. After you go through it, maybe once or twice perfectly, continue to speed up the metronome until you get to about 72 beats per minute. 72 might be really fast, so if it's still out of your reach, I don't encourage you to try to finish at 72. It'd be better to go to audition room playing it slower perfectly than play it fast with many mistakes. 30 is normally about where most metronomes start at for its slowest speed, and it's very slow. But this might even be a great place to start. So I'll play it from the beginning to the end, and you can even follow along if you want. Now at the very end there, I believe I only held it out for 2 beats. Just make sure that whenever you do speed it up, make sure you are holding it out for the 4 beats. Next, also just make sure that you have written at the very beginning a forte to make sure that you're giving enough support and volume throughout this whole entire piece. Next, I'm going to speed it up just a little bit. You can follow along here too. This is kind of a middle speed right here. This is at 50. So you can see that whole note at the very end seems very long. So make sure that you're counting its full 4 beats at the very end. A few things to really pay attention to whenever you're going through your music is make sure that you're giving it enough air and support right from the very beginning. Some reeds respond better in a low range than others, and sometimes it could be even an adjustment issue too on your instrument. But first, the things that you need to look out for is how you're forming your embouchure. So to really help with low notes, make sure that if you look in the mirror, and make sure that you do not have the reed in so far that you can't even see the reed anymore. You can only see thread. Example of it, reed too far, going to be like this. So really where our embouchure needs to be is closer to the tip of the reed. And whenever you have it in your mouth, you're seeing about 2/3 of the rest of the reed, or at least half of the reed. The next thing to pay attention to is making sure that you have a nice cushion with your lips, making sure that you're not smiling or having thin lips. Like thin lip be something like this. If you're playing like that, that also limits the response, the dynamic range, and it causes other issues whenever you're playing. So I'm going to give you an example of these two right from the very beginning here. So the first one is I'm going to have the reed in too far, and you really hear it's going to have a really shrill, thin sound, and it doesn't sound warm or pleasant really at all. So you can see it doesn't sound too great. Make sure that you have your reed out. The next thing I want to demonstrate is thin lips. This really, again, just limits the dynamic range and the response of the instrument and makes lower notes harder to play. What to do instead is make sure that you have nice cushion, your side of your mouth is coming forward, make sure that your teeth are almost aligned. So your top teeth and bottom teeth are almost aligned to each other. And just, yeah, again, make sure there's cushion and that you're playing at the tip of the reed. Whenever you play that first note, like the low D, make sure your embouchure is set. First thing to do, that I would do, is put your reed on your lower lip, roll in, take a breath, set your embouchure, and then play. So I'll do that all in sequence here. And whenever you're playing through this, also make sure that you just have a light tongue, that you have a constant air speed, and then your tongue is just barely touching in between each note. That'll also help, especially when you're playing D at the very end, and you're holding out that low D. So to play really lightly, just make sure that you're tonguing right at the very tip of the reed and just very lightly touching right there. And I believe that's it for this piece. Thank you.